The president's allies seem to focus on things that you would think the president wanted him to focus on. But you've reported, and we all saw with our own eyes, that it is his impeachment that is keeping Donald Trump up at night, not any problems with the FISA court system at this juncture.
That's exactly right. And that was clear in his rally last night. I think it came through on TV. And certainly if you were there in Hershey, Pennsylvania in person, as I was, the crowd was electric. The president was fired up and angry for a lot of it. And he touched on other themes, the low unemployment rate, but he kept coming back to, for extended riffs, impeachment. You can tell that the president is obsessed with it, and I mean, understandably so, to be fair, and infuriated by it. He called it ridiculous. He called it flimsy. He called it ugly. It's something he just can't quite get over. The flip side of that, of course, is he also, he is sort of very upset that this will bring an asterisk, at the very least, to his presidency, but it is something he can't stop talking about, in part because he just simply can't. It's a pathology, and in part because he thinks there's some political advantage. So you also saw him last night mention the silver lining, the idea that that's the only reason the USMCA trade deal got passed, and also saying that this is impeachment light, it's not even real impeachment, and frankly trying to fire up his base by saying this is Democrats basically trying to subvert your will. They couldn't win in 2016, they can't win in 2020, and this is how they're trying to do it.
Jonathan Lemire, it does put the president on, 4 to 5 sides of every two-sided question in Washington, whether this is good or bad politically for Democrats. He's taken 3 or 4 positions there. And it is, according to people close to this president, it is the kind of history that he abhors, one that minimizes him, one that shrinks him, one that makes him, in his own view, less of a legitimate president.
Right. We've seen there's a real divide. Remember, for months in the run up to this, even during the Mueller probe, we would hear that the people around the president, White House strategists, members of the campaign, sort of his inner circle, all thought impeachment would be good politically for him. And even now, we are seeing Brad Parscale, as campaign manager, tweeting out just today polls that they have suggesting that there are some House Democrats who are supporting impeachment in some of these battleground states who are struggling, who are underwater, that the Trump campaign is focusing on how impeachment is playing in those trio of Midwest states and some of the other swing states, that includes Pennsylvania, of course, that could determine the election in 2020. But the president himself has always taken a different approach. And you hit the nail right on the head. He is someone who's deeply mindful of his legacy, of the brand, and that he knows that this will be, even if he is impeached and even if he survives impeachment and he's not removed, that it's in the first sentence of his political obituary that he was the 3rd president to be impeached. And he can't handle that. That even if on some days he believes it could be politically advantageous to be impeached, he doesn't want that asterisk. He doesn't want that black mark on his record. And to your point, because it feels like it would diminish him. And that's part of the reason why he was so reluctant to acknowledge the idea of Russian election interference last time in 2016, because he felt that diminished him. That diminished his ability as president. That made him an illegitimate president. And he fears that if he's impeached, even if he survives a trial in the Senate, that will do so again now.
Jake Sherman, Nancy Pelosi, a very effective House Speaker by any measure, especially over the last 3 months. But I think Frank Figliuzzi here would agree she could double as someone with a degree in psyops. I mean, she has gotten under his skin in the category of diminishing him, making him look and feel smaller, and really checkmating him on the politics by narrowing the articles to 2 undeniable facts: that he abused his power and then he proudly pounds his chest over obstructing this investigation. Take us inside whether or not that was debated, and how she landed on sort of keeping this squarely in the undeniable, indisputable range in terms of the facts that have emerged.
Well, the president is used to dealing with congressional leaders who bend to his will and cater to his whims. And Nancy Pelosi doesn't do that. She's steely. She looks straight ahead and kind of barrels through any problems and concerns that other people might have. And she's very good at that and has been for the better part of a decade. And this isn't new. Her behavior, her strategy, her tactics are nothing new if you've been watching politics for the past decade, as many of us have. The president maybe hasn't been observing the House, or didn't when Nancy Pelosi was Speaker, but even he in 2006 or 2007 said that she was the greatest in a letter to her. But listen, the narrowing these impeachment articles is a savvy move to the extent that it doesn't bring in Mueller. Mueller was a not disputed, but definitely hotly contested process. And Nancy Pelosi left that on the side and said, and this is the lowest common denominator, so to speak, for House Democrats, these two articles, which are going to be debated tonight and tomorrow. And I just want to make another point here on the Senate trial, because it's stunning to me that the White House keeps saying time and time again that they want Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. They expect this spectacle. It's just not going to happen. It's not only is it not reality, it's not approaching reality. And we're talking about a long trial versus a short trial. This is all going to be determined by Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer, who have to cobble together the rules and do it without really input from the president, because any rule that's passed, any guidelines for this trial, has to get votes in the Senate. This is not a unitary body. This is a majoritarian institution, and the fact that the president is setting the bar for his base, that Joe Biden and Hunter Biden are going to be part of this trial, should be deeply concerning for Republicans, because it only sets up a construct in which Senate Republicans are going to be letting down their base. So I don't understand what the White House strategy is. And frankly, I'm not alone, because many people in the White House who are not in the communications operation are scratching their heads and wondering what's going on here. And it's easy to wonder that, because it doesn't make any sense whatsoever to promise something that will not happen in a politically tenuous situation. So again, we're entering a period in which the White House is going to have to be coordinating with Republicans on strategy, not leaving them and hanging them out to dry. And again, what's something that's going to be played on every network and every cable network for the next month.
You know, Matt Miller, Jake is hitting on a point that I think about all the time. The message that's been mainlined to the Trump base is we've got this, but all of their conduct suggests otherwise. And I've worked on Republican campaigns, and if you're Republican, you've never got this. You're usually hanging by a thread, and that is the case with this White House. And to suggest that everything's fine, nothing to see here, we have no political worries, but we promise you Hunter and Joe Biden, Adam Schiff, and on every third day, the whistleblower, suggests that there's a lot more concern under the surface.
I'm sure they are concerned about it. I suspect the reason they make these ridiculous promises is the same reason the president always does things. He doesn't have a long-term political strategy thought out. He does what feels good at the time, and he seeks out the kind of cheap sugar high of a segment on Fox and Friends talking about getting Hunter Biden and getting Joe Biden. But I think what they ought to be worried about is where Republican senators are. I mean, they should be thinking about how Republican senators are under pressure, because it's not just the president's political future that's on the line here, but the political future of people like Susan Collins in Maine, and Tom Tillis in North Carolina, and Cory Gardner in Colorado, all of whom I don't think there's any world in which you're going to find 20 votes to convict the president. But a world when, say, 51 votes to convict, a majority of the Senate decides that there's clear and compelling evidence that he abused his power and obstructed Congress and ought to be removed from office. That's a very different political outcome for the president than one in which there's just a party line vote and all Republicans side with him. So if I were them, I'd be very worried about it, because I think Democrats are going to look. I don't think they started this impeachment process because they thought it was necessarily the politically right thing to do. They started it because they thought the evidence demanded it. That said, if you're going to go down this road, you have to win the political fight. And they seem committed to winning the political fight and making sure that this vote doesn't just accrue to the president, but any Republican who votes to overlook this behavior owns it for the rest of the time Donald Trump is in office.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.